made them wear a hat, and he's got a neckerchief, a spotted neckerchief around his neck to keep his neck. And he's walking along, and it is a hot day, and he reaches the top of the hill, and there before him is the town he has never visited. And he looks down the path, and he sees a bridge over a stream, not really a river. And to the right is a small copse of trees. And beyond it, he can see the town, the hustle and bustle of a town that he has never been in. But what he doesn't see is 3 rogues standing just the other side of the bridge. In the story, strangely, they're called Dog's Teeth, these rogues. And as he walks toward the bridge, one of them walks past him and says, "Oh, hello, Hayseed. Nice goat you got there," and carries on walking. And Pika tries to say, "This is a cow, not a goat," but the boy has walked up the road. And as he reaches the bridge, there's another rogue sitting there with his elbow on the bridge, and he says, "Oh, nice goat, Hayseed. We'll get a decent price for that. It looks very healthy." But he carries on. He's confused now, so that when the third one comes out of the trees and says, "Hayseed, I will give you a good price for that goat, much better than you'll get in the market where there are loads of goats." And he says, "Well, if you don't want it," and he was so confused, he took the rogue's money and watched him lead Kyllikki toward the cattle market. And he walked around the town a while, the hustle and bustle, just like the Medina. He'd never seen anything like it in his life. But when he got to the cattle market, he saw the 3 rogues selling his cow, Kyllikki, for 4 times that they had given him. And he was furious, and he wondered how to get back at them. He decided on a plan. First, he went to a pie shop where people sit outside eating their pies. And he ordered and paid for 4 pies. And then he said to the waiter, "My friends are coming in a minute and we have a bit of fun. So when you bring the bill over and I'm going to twiddle my hat and say, 'Is everything paid for?' will you say yes?" And the waiter sort of shrugged and said, "Why not? Yes, paid for." Next, he walked along, and there was a cake shop, but there was also a beautiful tork. In Finland, it is a cheesecake with blueberries on. And he ordered 4 slices and paid for them. And he said the same thing to the man in the shop. He said, "My friends are coming in a minute. We have a bit of fun. When you come over with the bill and I spin my hat and say, 'Is everything paid for? Is that okay?'" He said, "I don't mind. I'll come over." Thirdly, he goes to an ice cream shop. Some ice cream with chocolate on the top. And he orders 4 of those as well, pays for them, and asks for the same thing: "Is everything paid for?" Then he sets off for the market, and the 3 rogues are walking along, and they see him coming towards them, and they sort of brace themselves. They're expecting an argument now, but there are 3 of them and only 1 of him. But when he arrives at them, he's got a smile on his face. He said, "I'm new to town, never been here before." He said, "And I think that was probably a good price for that goat, because I've looked at the goat sales and they're much cheaper than the price you gave me. So I thought, I'm hungry and I'm on my own. Would you like to join me for a pie?" And they all look at each other and think he's dafter than we thought, isn't he? Why not? Why not cheat him again? And they sit down, and they're 4 of them, and they all eat a pie. And the waiter comes over with his towel over his arm. Pika stands up and he takes his broad-brimmed cap off and he says, "Is everything paid for?" And the waiter says, "Certainly is," and walks off. And the rogues look from one to the other, but before they can speak, he jumps up and says, "Oh, I fancy something sweet now. Come on." And they follow him, and they sit down outside the cake shop. and he orders 4 slices of the pork. And they're laid out before them, and they tuck in, and they're all looking at each other thinking, this is simple. And then the waiter comes over, and Pika stands up again with his hat and spins it on his finger and says, is everything paid for? And the waiter says, yep, walks off. Now they are really intrigued, and they start asking about the hat, and he says, my grandfather's hat. In country districts, there is a certain kind of magic. And my grandfather kept this cap because it only works in the town. I'll show you. And he took him along to the ice cream shop, and they had the lovely ice creams with the chocolate on top. They all tucked in. When the waiter came over, Pika looked at the 3 of them and said, watch. Is everything paid for? The waiter said, yes. Walked on. We want to buy your hat. He said, I couldn't sell my hat. It's my grandfather's. We want to buy the hat. How much do you want for it? He said, no. Grandfather's hat. They said, come on, AC. It only works in the town. It's no good to you up in the country. Sell us your hat. And he goes, oh, I don't know. And they start getting all the money out of their pockets. All the money they got for Kaliki. All the money they had there in the first place. Some of their jewels. And they piled it up. And Pika made to look at it and rub his chin and wonder. And he laid out his neckerchief on the table and he put it all in it and he tied it up. And he said, well, reluctantly, but you're right. It only works in the town, doesn't it? So it's no use to me up the country. And he takes the broad-brimmed hat off and he hands it over. And the rogues look at it. And Pika sets off for home. And the rogues go to the finest restaurant. And they spend the rest of the day perusing with a huge banquet of food and fruit juices and tea. And it's brought one after the other. And at the end of the evening, the waiter comes over with this huge long list. The first rogue stands up with a cap and says, is everything paid for? The waiter says, pardon? So the second one takes it. He says, you're not doing it right. Is everything paid for? And he spins it vigorously. Pardon? Says the waiter, his face darkening. And the third one grabs it and his hand's shaking now because this is not working. Is everything paid for? Is everything paid for? The waiter calls over his shoulder and 2 large men appear from the kitchen with big aprons on, and they take them by the collars and they take them into the kitchen where they start washing up. Do have a seat. And they start doing the washing up. And you can imagine in a restaurant like that with all those people, the washing up is piled up to the ceiling and they are washing up for the whole night to pay their bill. Meanwhile, Pika has arrived home and he goes into the kitchen and he puts his neckerchief, now bundled over all the money, onto the kitchen table and he opens it out. And his mother says, Pika, you didn't get all that money for old cow Kaliki, did you? He said, no, I sold my hat as well. Thank you. And as I was saying earlier, and Mohammed's going to tell the next story, it's a personal story. So that is a personal story to me. It's the first story I told to adults, if you like, and began my journey as a storyteller. But you may want to tell a story, something happened in your life that is personal to you, an anecdote. So who's telling? You pop your hand. Well, just a minute, yeah. 1, 2. I'm just 3, 4. Okay, you can jump in. You can jump in later on. So we've got 4 to start with. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so that will be Mike, Katrina, Senna,
Fiona.
Fiona. Oh, and listen. Okay, five. So, right, you've got four stories. Okay, five. Okay, got five stories. Oh, right, six. Mohammed, would you like to get me out of this and come and tell me a story?
Yeah.
So, Mohammed, it's
My
my.
asked really nice to. How Lucy? How long are you here for?
I have to go.
Oh, do you have to? You really have to go.
I do really.
Right, okay, doesn't matter.
You've got about
I've got
15.
something I want to
Okay.
hear. That was all. But
Bye, Lucy. Thanks for stopping for the story.
We'll do it another time.
Good.
They've been
Oh.
recorded.
Yeah.
How many stories you got recorded?
Sorry,
Here,
Matt, I need to sit down.
All of them.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Well, have it. Sorry.
Okay, your turn.
Of course. Thank you.
So Kate said that a personal story whether means your own story or a story that's important to you.
Yes.
So we start by telling our own personal stories, Kate and I, so that you feel free to share your own personal story or one that is important and close to you. So I shall begin. So long ago, or not, because it was 17 years ago. Is it so long? Perhaps not. So let's just say long ago. Long ago in a village in Morocco. A Moroccan family were expecting a baby in 2002. And one day, and I think it was Tuesday, the baby was born. Very beautiful baby. The mom held it in her hands. The baby lived for 1 year and passed away. They were so saddened. They lived in a great grief for 3 years. But good news came. The mother was again pregnant with another child. After 3 years, they were again expecting another baby. So another date was the 3rd of March. Well, I think May. An evening it was, I think. They were again waiting, and the mom gave birth to another baby. And they were so happy, though they still felt the sadness. They felt that the birth of that baby was a good compensation. They thanked God and hugged their baby. The baby turned 3 years old. But to their surprise, he couldn't walk. His legs were so weak. He couldn't walk nor run. His peers were always running in the yard, playing games, but he could not. He was so weak, and the mother was wondering, what happened to my child? 3 years old, and he cannot walk. There were some women that told her, perhaps a cat jumped upon him. Perhaps it was a black cat. That's why he can't walk. Perhaps a jinn has seen him with a black eye. Or perhaps there was a needle that had the blood of an owl. All these superstitious views. But she didn't listen. She said, maybe, perhaps my child can't walk because he has a condition. And with the father, they went on to a hospital. It was far, but taking the child was worth the stake. They went to the hospital. They took that child, and the doctor took him. They said, what's wrong with you? Child said, nothing, I just can't walk. Then the doctor tried to diagnose the child. He said, your child's bones are so fragile. He needs vitamins. It's that simple. So they went home and they decided to give a better nutrition to their child. And after 1 year, after a good nutrition and a follow-up with the doctor, the child was getting better and better every single day. And I still remember, because perhaps I was with them. I don't know. It was a Friday. The child was running and playing with his peers and friends. His legs were strong that he could play football with them. And he grew up to be able to stand in a cafe in a festival to tell stories.
Wow, you led it along by a string there, didn't you? Oh, that it was.
Amazing.
Thank you very much. Mike, would you like to tell us?
Right, yeah,
Personal story.
I'm going to tell you a personal story, but I'm going to say something else first for 2 minutes, if that's all right. We sat down a long time ago to work out about personal anecdotes and storytelling. And the answer we came up with was this, and it's called the 3 ears and the 3 mouths. So if you're going to tell a story in public, we lost our Auntie Hillary back in the middle of last year. She was 96 and we had a smashing time as a celebrity. And I can tell you all about the funeral, right? But telling you all about a funeral, a wedding or a christening or anything is okay amongst your family friends and because everybody's interested. By the time it comes out of 3 mouths and it goes in 3 ears, it's moved 3 places. And once it's then, it has to be a freestanding story of it in its own right and not connected to you personally. And then it will grow legs and run. So if you want to tell personal stories about traumas and weddings and christenings and all the things we have in our local lives, you have to be a little bit careful that the story you're telling is interesting enough to entertain the people who are listening. Right? And that's what we came up with.
Thank you for the listen.
Right? Okay.
Well, please don't be put off by that.
I am very.
Right, but so as those of you no, hang on a minute. No, hang on a minute, I haven't finished yet. Right, so this was at a time when there was what I used to call the storytelling had 3 legs. And the 3 legs in my country were the folkies, the ones from the libraries, and the ones from the theatre. Now, in my lifetime, and I'm 70 next month, the 4th one is grown. And the 4th one is grown out, and in this festival, they call it Budget. It's where there is the stories are used to help people help themselves or help other people. And if that's the reason you're telling personal stories, that's fine. Get on and tell them. And that's what I was going to end up with. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Right. So I'm going to tell you this one, and this is a personal one about me.
Good.
Right? And I very carefully don't say I don't do them very much. But when the COVID hit and everything else, John Rowe and I came up with this crazy idea. We do some Zoom storytelling. And 10 years ago, I just stood there and said, you will never get me to tell stories on the computers and everything else. It won't work. Because of the COVID hit and everything else, and I'm not going to say that COVID was a good thing, but there's a silver line to every cloud. And we made it work. And we do a story round every other Sunday, at 6 o'clock in the evening, and I sit in Anna's old room, it's called, in Shropshire, and everybody's welcome to come. And we get people like Sue, who comes from South Africa, Valentina, who's blind, who lives in Canada. And all through the lockdowns, we did this, and a different community. We found a way of getting into a different community where the people who struggled were lonely, or they were struggling to get out, or they couldn't get out on lockdown and everything else. And we built a community, and it really, really worked really well once we worked out how to do it. And it was all set from this room here. And the chap at the back there is Wally, right? And he used to sit there, and this old man from Shropshire used to turn up and goes, we want a story round every Sunday at 6 o'clock, and the time difference, and he didn't miss once. Every time he was there, the connections were made, and the people in this building supported it all the way through. And they came along with the first festival. I couldn't get to the first festival because my wife had been unwell, and I just couldn't make it. She was in hospital and everything else. But all this had happened, and I thought, this is me all over. What I need to do is to go and say thank you to the people in Marrakesh for supporting this story round and this Zoom meeting, everything. So 1 November, I phoned up John Rowe and I hopped on a plane and I flew over to here. And we did the story round in this room. And everybody who was on it, of all over the world, they go, where are you? And I went, well, I'm in Marrakesh. And you're what? What are you doing in Marrakesh? Well, I just hopped on a plane from shops, so I'm going to hop back again, and I stayed and everything else. Right? So as I got to the airport, I sat down there, and the last thing Lynn said as I was leaving Shropshire to come here on that trip was, be nice to everybody. That's exactly what she said, because she'd been unwell again, and I planned it, and I paid for all the tickets and everything else, and I didn't want to come. I wanted to stay in Shropshire. because she'd been unwell again. She'd had another episode, is what we call it. And she said, "Go, I'll be okay. We've got 2 children. We can sort out the weekend." And as I got in the car, she said, "Be nice to everybody." So I got on the airplane, and I'm sat on the airplane, and there was a lady that looked like you, Natalie, and she sat there 2 seats away. And you know, you sat on an airplane and you're chatting away, and she told me her life history. And her life history was that she went over to Pakistan when she was 14, and she was married off. What she had to do was get an education and come back into the UK. And because she was 14, our government went and found her and brought her back. She'd had 2 children by then. She'd been to a university, and now she was a doctor. And she was a consultant in London, and she just got married for the 2nd time. And she was meeting her new husband in Marrakesh because he'd had to go to Paris on different airplanes. So I got a bottle of wine now, and we celebrated that because she was absolutely 39, just 40, 2nd time round, and everything was good in her life. And it was really nice to hear after all the COVID stuff, everything was good in her life. She asked me why I was good. So I told her all about the storytelling, how my life had gone, and we drank away, and she was really interested about the festival and all the other bits and pieces I do and everything. And I told her about what Lynn said. So I got into the car, and she asked me about Lynn, and told her all about that pacemaker and all the rest of it, everything else. And the airplane landed. You know, you go to the Marrakesh airport, we've all done it. You come off, you go down, you go to the passport thing, and then there's that big computer X-ray thing. You stick all your stuff in, and when you get to the other side, that's it. You're out of the airport. Mike had sent the guy from the Cinnamon Hotel that I was staying in. I was just going down there with everything, and sat her name up, and she came and she tapped me on the shoulder. And I looked around, and she said, "Your wife, Lynn," she said. I said, "Yeah." She said, "She told you to be nice to everybody." I said, "She did." She said, "Try bloody harder." And she disappeared. I've never seen her since, right? So that's my personal story, because when I got here, I did try to be nice to everybody, right? And I found this place wonderful, and it's full of the nicest people, and I really enjoyed being here and everything else. All right, now then, there's a personal story. You think it's true or not?
Yes.
Yeah, you think it's all true?
No.
No? You're wrong. Every word was true.
Yeah, I knew that because
I told it before. Yeah.
we're friends and we meet and so we hear stuff. Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you for those tips on telling personal stories.
Yeah.
Don't let it put you off.
Oh, no.
Katrina, you'd like to tell us a story?
Oh yeah, I shall
We've
hobble
got-
over there.
We're here until 5 o'clock, so everyone's going to get a chance to tell.
As we were talking about
But we
both-
do sort of, well, we were talking about timing early, weren't we, Katrina? That we do sort of limit sort of 10 minutes or so.
Well, when you were talking, Keith, about the first story that you told, I was thinking about how I very first started storytelling. And this was not storytelling, but theatre, because I got Arts Council money to set up a theatre company in Birmingham. And what we were meant to do was to, in Birmingham, there are large communities. It's not the same as in London. In Birmingham, you have schools where probably 95% of the children come mostly from Pakistan, and there are some children from India. So you have very, very distinct ethnic communities in Birmingham, which is different from London, I think, where you have a lot more mixture. And so we were asked to work on developing positive images amongst children. And so really, I personally was starting from scratch. And so we had to develop ways of interacting with the children, of getting them to identify with their culture, because they come to a school in England and they think that they shouldn't really talk about their own culture. They should only be talking about English culture. So it was all to do with this. So this is a story in the way that we developed. And I just thought about it. And I haven't told it for years, so I have to try and remember how it goes. And it's an interactive story, and it's a bilingual story. So I hope that you're going to join in with me. So the story begins like this. Ek समय की बात है. Once upon a time. So we're going to say that together. Ek समय की बात है, which means one time as speaking. In the Punjab, there was a poor little boy who had lost his mother and his father, and all he had in the whole world was an auntie who really was not at all interested in him. And she said, you can call me Massey, and you are going to look after the sheep, and the best thing for you is to live out in the fields with the sheep. So off he went. And he lived in the field with the sheep day after day, after night, after night, after week, after year. And when the sheep died in the fields, he would take the bones and he would start to make little holes in them, and then he used to play. And people used to call him Pipe Bones because of the way he played this beautiful music. And somehow when he played this music, he learnt how to talk with the animals. But ek din, one day, who should come into that field but a great big barrier? So you can say with me, wolf, barrier, wolf, barrier. And this wolf looked at the little skinny boy and he said, thin boy, that sheep, who should I eat? So can you say that with me?
Thin boy, fat sheep,
Who should I eat? Patala, mota, isco cow.
Patala, mota,
Isco cow. And the poor little boy didn't know what to do, and he decided he'd better go and ask his auntie, and he ran down the field. And at that moment, in her farmhouse, she was counting out her money. And when she saw that skinny little boy, she instantly said, thin boy, fat sheep, the wolf should eat you. Thin boy, fat sheep, the wolf should eat you. Oh, little boy, run back. Well, little boy, what did your auntie say? Is there anything I can do for you after I've eaten you? And the little boy began to sing. Bones, 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 hang my bones upon a tree. Hadia, hadia, latka do uspe. Can you sing that with me? And it goes. Bones, 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 and my bones upon a tree. Hadia, hadia, Lancado os ferra. That's exactly what the wolf did. He hung those bones upon a tree, but as he moved away, he heard the most beautiful sound. Sangeet. Music. Sangeet. Music. And as the wolf heard that music, he couldn't stop himself but to get up and dance around. And as he began to dance round and round and round, all the animals came in from the jungle. The wolf, the cow, the little sheep, the little rabbits, the lions, the tigers, and all of them were dancing together. All of them dancing Isate. But who should come in to the midst of all of them but a man, a hunter. Hunter, Shikaria. Can you say that with me? Hunter, Shikaria. Hunter, Shikaria, because the man could not believe his luck. And then he too heard that music, and he too wanted to start to dance round and round and round with all the animals, but because he was a man, he began to think, where does the music come from? And he looked round, and then he saw those bones that were making the beautiful music, and he lifted up his hand, he touched the bones, and the music stopped. And it stopped. All the animals suddenly looked around and saw that they were all with them, and they all ran for their lives because they saw the hunter. And the hunter began to think, was this a dream? He didn't know. But what he did know was he had the memory of the time when all of the animals danced together, and it was something to do with those bones. And they say that if you go to the Punjab and you look round and round and round, one day you might find the bones and hear the music and experience the time when all of the animals danced together. And that is the end of the story. We're going to say this with me. Say that. That is the end of the story. Okay.
As an aside, before our next story teller entertains us, this shirt comes from the Punjab. Lucky enough to do, there was a project between schools in Wolverhampton, Cornwall and the Punjab. And when I was in the Punjab, they shower you with gifts. And this was one of them. It's from the Punjab, but I didn't hear the music. So I didn't look carefully. Did we, Lorna? We didn't look carefully. If you would like to come up and tell us your story. We're going round.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's Keith on the screen.
Oh, it's Keith from Lincolnshire. On the
Can you
screen.
see us, Keith? Hey!
He's known as the other Keith in the Zoom sessions.
Yeah.
Hi, Keith.
And everybody in the UK's got an old man with a white beard.
Okay, right.
I'm retired,
There we are.
and but something in me says that here there are some people who wants to listen to the story that I'm going to tell. So I will tell, but yeah, you might help me with English sometimes. Okay, this is a story about my father, like my relationship with my father. You need to know first, my father is a man who is really caring for his family, and he loves surprises. One day he might bring breakfast in bed. Another day he might put flowers into the room. You know, it doesn't need to be a special day, just as a surprise. He loves this kind of. He might write letters, love letters, to his daughters, me and my younger sister, and to my mom. So he is a very, very caring man, and he will do anything for his family, to please his family. On the other hand, this is one side of my father. On the other hand, he is a man with his one-liners. Senem, do not cry. Only desperate people cry. That's one of them. Or Senem, you must work hard, otherwise you fail. Senem, please be realistic. Life does not like dreams. That is one of the common that he would repeat. Anyway, I hope you got the picture. So when I was 14, we went to a lovely holiday resort at the south coast of Turkey, and it was a beautiful place. And during the orientation tour, we were brought to fine sand beach. My father looked at me and said, Senem, you are getting quite podgy. How about tomorrow coming here and running on sand early in the morning together? You know, father, daughter. First, I hate running. That's a fact. I hate running. Have you ever ran on sand? It is a torture. It is total torture. Oh, on top of this, I would rather stay at night and flirt with the boys on that beach at that age. And I said, oh yes, father, I would love to. And the next day, I was there at the beach, trying my best, but my best was definitely not enough because he was very ahead of me and was kind enough to wait me like this. Yeah. One day passed, second day passed. On the third day, like in the afternoon, I gathered my courage and said, Father, is it okay if I don't run tomorrow? Okay, fine with me. But you just need to take care of this shape, like otherwise you would look like a teddy bear soon. He said.
I thought I was Peter.
It was tough. It is still tough in some ways, but also lovely. But the toughest happened when I was in university. I was 19 and still living with my family in Istanbul. I got accepted by the chemical engineering department of Istanbul Technical University. And that was like, you know, my father really did this. He just celebrated it. He was super happy. And for like, you know, he liked to buy dear gifts for this big event. And he bought me a car.
Wow.
Could you believe? Yes. So lucky I was. And he kind of has this dream. I would be an engineer. I would work in an engineering company, find someone from that company, another engineer, marry him, blah, blah, blah. And my dream was acting. I was involved in the theater community at the university club, and I spent my whole free time at the cultural center of the university. I even failed on exams on purpose. Didn't like. On purpose, I failed just to be able to stay in summertime at the university to continue my theater practice. When I finished the bachelor degree, I decided, oh, I do masters. So I can stay at the university and I continue the theater practice. But my father came with another plan. He said, Sinan, the best options for master degrees in engineering are in United States. If you go there, I could cover your expenses. And this was such a great opportunity for a woman coming from a third world country. And I said, no, I don't want to go. I want to stay with the theater community. And my father made it clear that he would not support me financially if I stay in Istanbul. Luckily enough, I got a scholarship. And they even offered me a dormitory room, single dormitory room on campus. I would live on campus. That was great news. And when I went home, told my parents about these great news. The slide, my blush. Yeah, it got deeper and deeper and deeper. And at last, my father said, oh, okay. Yeah, I don't want you to leave the family home, but if you want to leave, yeah, you do your thing, but then leave the car. You will not need it anymore. At that moment, I got really angry. Like up to that point, I did my best to please my father, and I was 23 years old, financially independent, and I thought the car was a gift. That pride overtook me. Like I got so angry with big gestures, went to the room, brought the car keys, left it on the table, went back and started to pack up. I said, okay, I'm out of here. Like, I'm going for the good. I'm leaving the family home. That's it. Like, he can't behave me like that. That's just, the tension got higher and higher and higher. And yeah, there I was. Backpack, suitcase, fluffy frock. This really happened, literally. And I just opened the door and went through the corridor. It's the apartment building. And as I was entering into the lift, I heard my father groan. Nereye gittiğini sanıyorsun? Haddini aştın artık, yeter. So I saw him running towards me like a wild animal, and he just took me out of the lift and dragged me into the house. And I was shocked. Up to that point, he just did not, act violently towards me. Like, that was definitely not his thing. But yeah, and I was like, he was like shaking me, and I just wanted again to go, but something inside me said, Senem, do not go into power struggle again. Just leave. And I just went to my room and spent the whole night looking at the sea. Those sleepless nights happening after a big shock. Yeah, that's what happened. And the next day, I didn't want to create further drama, so I said I need the stuff now for the moment. I take it later when they are not at home. So I got out of my room, and my father was on the doorstep. He said he's sorry about what happened last night. He said that, like, I lost myself. And then pretended as if nothing happened. He asked me, are you going to school? Yes, Dad. Do not forget the car keys. I don't need that. I don't need them, Dad. No, you might need them. They are in the kitchen. Take them. And then went to the living room. And there I was, looking to the house. I will say, okay, I'm going. I'm out of here. And I just left the building. And in front of the building, I heard my father's voice. Senem, you forgot the car keys. I will not take them, Papa. I did not take them. But the story does not end here. I started my new life at the university dormitory in a small room, eating food from tin cans and using public transport. But with time, we came to terms with my father that, we forgave each other about what happened. Like, I was so reactive and he was so reactive. And we just said, okay, just like, we will leave this in the past. And my father's dream had another color. This time I would be a professor. Find another professor from the academy, marry him, and blah, 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 blah. That dream also went astray because I quit academy and decided to keep my earn as a performing artist. So he stopped dreaming about me. He thought I am a complete loser. Yeah, and we continued living and loving each other. Time passed. I met an Irishman, and we started dating and turned to a long-time relationship. And he proposed me, and I said yes.
Sure.
And up to that point, when these were happening, my father did not have any idea about this Irishman. One day, we are in the family home.
How many years later?
How many years later? Good question. I think 10 years later.
Oh.
Yeah. No, not the relation. Relationship is only 2 years. 2 years. But he didn't know about the relationship. No, not 2 years. Sorry, 1 year. 1 year. He didn't know. Anyway, like I was visiting family home regularly, and one day at dinner, I said, "Father, I have good news. I have an Irish boyfriend. He proposed me, and I said yes." And he could not digest this, like, he became speechless, and I can understand. I felt for him, like, poor guy. And then he kind of understood that I planned to move to Ireland, and he asked whereabouts, like Northern Ireland or South Ireland. And I said, like, what would that make it a difference for him? But that was the only thing that he knew about Ireland. So I left him there to digest all the news and went to, to the kitchen. And then he came and said, "Senem," the boyfriend's name was Peter. And he said, "Senem, send Peter's CV to me." And that time I just got, is he for real? I thought he's going to do, does he going to hire Peter or? Anyway, at that time I didn't understand, but I still want to, do something that he can relate to all these situations. So he owns a business Peter. So like I sent the website at least so we can get some information. But then I thought actually CV, like when you don't know anything about the culture, when you don't know anything about that person, it's a way that, you know, at least you can Google Translate because he's not good in English. So, you know, you can Google Translate and kind of understand things. Anyway, a couple of months later, he met Peter, and Peter's charm and rapport really, was appreciated by my father, and he really liked him. So, and when we got married in Ireland, we got married in a church, and so my father was the one who walked me along the aisle. And as you see, my father's dreams about me did not come true, and here I am living my own dream.
So you're off.
Sorry, I've got to go.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Mike said he's got to nip off.
No, I didn't be in touch.
Okay.
with me for those
So
that make sense.
we've got another hour, so we're okay. You,
I'm gonna sit, I think you're
it's
next.
okay. That's okay.
I'm just gonna sit here so I can lift
Okay.
my back against something.
It's your turn.
Sure, thank you. Çok güzel. Teşekkürler.
Thank you. Ben
Sorry, just looking around the room. So next, it's your turn next. Your turn next, and then your turn. Then your turn.
Do you know?
No,
Okay. Thank you.
okay. You're after.
Fiona.
Yeah, no, I know Fiona. I was scared.
Ne harika.
Yeah. Okay, Fiona.
I'm taking the plane on my own for the first time. I'm 8 years old. 2 planes, in fact, one from Bordeaux to Paris and one from Paris to Dublin. I'm gonna go and see my dad. The air hostesses are nice and they mind me. They give me coloring books and toys. And then we land. And I see him. So tall, his hair so long. My father. Such a mix of emotion in me. I don't like it. I don't like that feeling. Hard to name. Shyness, shame, connection, disconnection. It is strong. Then we go to the park. On the way, my father buys me an ice cream. There's a beautiful golden evening light at the end of a summer's day, and a gentle breeze. With an ice cream in my hand, one hand, and then my father's hand in the other, I tried to balance walking on the low railing because on the grass it said forbidden. Do not walk. And there, in the park, in the evening light, under the breeze, in this town where I spent my first 4 years of my life and with my dad, whom I haven't seen for a whole year, I start whistling a tune. What tune? French national anthem. Why there? Why this moment? But my father, not missing a trick, continues the tune as the Beatles song. Love, 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 do do, love, 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 do do, love, love, love. It's easy, is it? Then we go to his flat in inner city Dublin. On the street, a sight new for me. Teenage moms pushing prams, 7-year-old boys smoking the cigarette. And then we go into his building. Strong smell of urine. Below the staircase, cats chasing rats. The tears are close, but we climb the first 2 flights of stairs to his flat. The key turns in, and then I discover my bedroom. So bright, so cheerful, and so welcoming. Full of love. Not just my dad's love for me, but my dad's friends' love for him. Because they all donated toys, books, stickers. There's a toy that I remember, which is plastic thing full of water, and you press buttons and glittery fish or come floating in the water, and you go to put them in their baskets. And then there's a book about slugs taking a summer holiday. And my dad had asked me in the previous letter what were my favorite colors. So I had said yellow, purple, and pink. And so he painted the rooms, the walls of the room accordingly. His partner, Bridget, made a patchwork quilt for my bed, as well as curtains for the window. How to resist? How to keep my French cool in front of such an outpouring of love? It was hard, but I did it. I kept speaking French to my Irish dad, and I hardly answered to his I love you at night when he tucked me in bed with like a mug of hot chocolate. So outward, I was keeping it together, even listening to the French radio station a little bit every day to not be swayed. But underneath, there was a river of love that was gnawing at my recent French foundations. During this holiday, I played with the little neighbor Sarah, and we played Guess Who and ate Angel's Delight in her flat. Angel's Delight, I don't know how this thing existed. It was fluffy, it was pink, it was chemical, very sweet. I went to the local swimming pool with my dad's French friend, Isabelle. It was a place where you had to step into a bright blue chemical liquid before you were allowed to step into the swimming pool. And then everybody was given a colored bracelet according to their slot. And when your slot finished, there was a big alarm like that just would send you just your heart palpitating with fright. And then I made friends that were so different from my friends in France. My dad was a street trader. He made wooden puppets, dots, and leather belts. And so I met other traders in the street, including a jeweler who was a punk, a real punk. All the hair on her head was like just straight up, and whom I called the hedgehog. And then the months passed actually quite quickly. And it was the last day. The last full day before I was to take the flight home. I was playing with a wooden truck that my dad had made. And my dad was hoovering the house. And while I was playing with the truck, I listened to a record that used to belong to me when me, my dad, and my mom lived together as a family in Ireland. And I spoke only English with a perfect Dublin accent. And listening to this record, the record is called Émilie Jolie. It was actually in French. It's Je m'appelle Émilie Jolie. Je m'appelle Émilie Jolie. Je voudrais partir avec vous, tout au bout du ciel, sur vos ailes. Je voudrais passer avec vous ma vie. It's about a little girl whose parents have gone out for the evening, and she meets all these beautiful creatures, including the sparrows, and she just wants to go with them. So listening to that, I had a feeling that just I can still remember to this day. It was like a recognition, like a really, really, really deep warmth of heart and comfort. And it was, I feel it's the only thread that ever connected together my life as a French little girl, woman, that I'm still continuing to this day, and my life from before as a little Irish girl, having grown up with my first few years with my parents. There was that little thread that brought those two lives together. And then the next day, I was on that flight. And a few hours later, I was back in my grandmother's house where I spent the last 3-4 years. And there in my grandmother's house, I had my first hissy fit, my first temper tantrum ever, my first time not being the good child with my grandmother. And I said, this house is too big. It's too big. I don't want to live here. That were the best words that I knew how to say to express my bewilderment at having spent a month in a tiny little inner city flat packed with love, and all of a sudden being in this huge house in France away from that big, big love. But it worked. A few weeks after, I left my grandmother's house and I went to live in the nearest town in my mom's tiny little flat on the 5th floor to live in her own style of chaos and make-do. And there, that next year, my mom and me had a little chance at finding some love too.
I'm not gonna keep standing up, but we've got plenty of time, got an hour.
It's about fathers.
Then, and next. Yeah, and next, and sorry, is there anyone else who's coming who's gonna tell us a story? Are you gonna tell us a story?
Maybe.
Yeah,
Let's see.
maybe,
Maybe.
maybe, no, maybe is okay, maybe is okay, we're gonna have time, we're going to have time. I just wanna make sure everyone gets a turn, you're okay sat there?
I'm,
Are you sure? Yeah?
yeah, fine. Sam,
Are you okay?
50 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, we've got 50 minutes,
Yeah, good.
so 50 minutes sounds about right.
Okay, this is a story about how I met Joy in Morocco. It was just after COVID. In fact, it was during COVID. When I did a search online, we were all locked down. Morocco was locked down. And I did a search online. If I went to Morocco, could I find somewhere to stay? Somewhere affordable for about a month. And I looked and I found a cheap place. But everything, airports were shut, borders were shut. And I thought, do you know what? I want to put a foot in the future. I'm going to put a foot in the future. And I booked a trip to Morocco without knowing at all whether I was going to make it here. Put a deposit on, so it wasn't too risky. And it was coming up to the time of our trip, February, I think. It was coming up to the time of the trip. Still, borders are closed. No planes flying. And a week before our trip, the borders opened. And we had an opportunity to come here to Morocco. It's quite challenging being in Morocco straight after COVID. People had a really hard time, and they were hungry for tourists and the income from all of this, and rightly so. There'd been huge losses. So we'd come to Marrakesh, and we were taking a bus from Marrakesh all the way to Fez. And partway through that journey, the bus stopped. I was wearing a beautiful blue jalaba. And as I was standing by the bus, there were 3 children. Max had gone to get a coffee. And there were 3 children. They were pointing at me, and they were kind of laughing behind their faces and whispering to each other. Why are they pointing and laughing at me? Is it the jalaba? What's going on? So I went over to them. One of them had a telephone, so I went over to them, made a connection, and I said, "Can I take a photograph of you?" And they said, "No, we want a photograph of you." And then before you knew it, we were stood together. We had a photograph of me with the girls and me with the boys. Well, one boy, and then the mother came back. Max came back, and mother was called Hafida. So Hafida came over, and we communicated using the magic of Google Translate. And we communicated, myself and Hafida, to tell each other that I have 4 children, and she has 4 children. One of her children can be on that trip. And we made this beautiful connection. And she was calling me her sister. And it was wonderful. It was beautiful. We were all in this car park, dusty car park, with, you know, thunderous trucks going past us, laughing and having so much joy together. And then we got back on the bus. We were stopping over in Casablanca just for one night. And the bus carried on to Fez with family on it. And we exchanged telephone numbers. And Hafida said, "Please come to my house. Please come and visit me in my home." When we reached Fez, it was Ramadan just starting. So I very carefully sent a message to Hafida and said, "I don't want to intrude on your holy time. I would love to come and see you with your children. I don't want to intrude on your holy time." She said, "Please come. I would be welcome." That's how I felt it. This is on Google Translate. That's how I felt that message coming into me, you know. And so I asked her where she was, and she put a pin on a map. So I had a map. Right, I've got a map. I'm in Fez. I know where I'm going. So we follow the map, and we get to the place where the pin is, which is, by all accounts, quite a dangerous area, but I didn't realise that. So we went to the place where the pin was on the map, definitely in the right place. No doubt about it. It's a hairdresser's. I'm sure Vida and her family don't live at hairdressers. So we're looking up the street, down the street, and then a man comes by on a motorbike and he sees us. Not many Westerners go to this area, clearly. And so he stops. And he's, why are you here? Hafida? I said, Hafida? This is all I could say. I'm looking for Hafida. And then I went to show a photograph of her from her WhatsApp. But, oh no, that's a photograph of her father. I don't know if this is going to come across. I didn't want to show him the picture and go, Hafida, it just didn't feel right. So we were here looking, and then Max went off and said, I think this house here might be Hafida's house. So he kind of edged in. He was really confident. Edged in through the door and looked in and just stepped over the threshold calling out, Hafida, Hafida. And somebody came out of the living room and invited Max in. And said, oh yeah, Hafida, come in, sit down. And Max sat down. And as Max relays it to me, before he knew it, she was getting some tea together. He realized this wasn't Hafida's house. I'm outside wondering, where's Max? Should I follow him? I was quite worried by this point. What the heck is going on? And then so Max makes his apologies and say, I'm looking for Hafida, and left the house and came out while we tried. And then she came around the corner wearing a big, beautiful pink coat. Hafida came around the corner with another young man, the child of hers that I hadn't met. And they welcomed us and they gave us hugs, and it not very long before prayer time. So we quickly walked through narrow lanes and narrow alleyways to Hafida's house. And it was Ramadan, as I've already said. And we went into the most humble house. I was struck by how humble it was. It didn't have the glorious gates and things and doors that you see here, just curtains across the doors inside the house. There were 2 rooms for the children, 1 room for Hafida, and her brother slept on a couch in the hallway. The kitchen was in a hallway as well. So there was not even a real kitchen there. We went into a tiny, tiny living room and we sat, knees touching the table. 4 children, Hafida, Max and myself, all squeezed in around this table. And on the table, oh my goodness, the most beautiful feast. Dates, harira, coffee, everything that you would expect from a Ramadan breakfast. We talked a little bit, translate, but Salim spoke most beautiful English. He was a really gentle man, maybe 19, 20 years old. And he told me that he'd learned some English. He wasn't very confident. He didn't like the fact that he had a little bit of American in his language because he'd been taught, he apologized for his language because he'd been taught by Americans and he wanted to be more English with his accent, which was a real surprise. And we talked, and then the prayer started. And we were all quiet. And then fireworks, bam, bam, bam. We felt elated, and then everybody picked up a date. Each of us ate a date. And the feast began, and Hafida couldn't offer us enough soup, enough coffee, enough bread, enough of the wonderful feast, sweets on the table, and all of this. Have another coffee. You know, I've had 2 already, please. It's evening time. And I didn't feel like I could refuse. Her generosity was so great. And we got talking, and the younger children were sitting there just enjoying the fact that there were strangers that they'd met and brought to their home. It was a real blessing for us and such a blessing for them, this shared connection. And Hafida's my sister. She's like, we are family. And Salim explained that you know, she's telling you we're sisters. And then Hafida offered me her coat, her beautiful pink coat. I think because I'd commented on how beautiful the coat was. She wanted me to take the coat. I don't have enough room in my case for this gift. Thank you so much, but I don't have enough room for this. And so she went and she brought me a ring. And we all took photographs together. And then we sat again and we talked some more. The younger children wanted to get out. They were having a sugar rush by now. I'm like, come on, I want to get out and go to the square and have some fun. But Salim, he stayed. Oh, hang on, let me go back a little bit. Before they went out, Salim, I told him that I was a poet. He asked me to read a poem. Boy, I'll get emotional about this bit. So I read them a poem about do not seek to be sacred, no need seeking fulfilling. Your cup is full, lift the cup and taste your sacredness, which was basically the premise of the poem. And then Salim suddenly sprang up out of his chair and he ran out of the room. Oh my goodness, again, it's like, what's going on? And then I looked across the room and Sophia, one of the children, she just had tears down her face. And I knew Sophia couldn't understand the words. And then Salim came back in the room and said, sorry, I had to leave because your poem made me cry. It made me so emotional. And oh my God, it blows my mind even today. And then after this, as we sat there, so we said, we're going to have to go now. It's time. Feast ended. Young children have gone out and they're doing their wild thing. We're still there with Salim and Hafida, and it was time to go. So it's okay. We know our way. We can find our way from where you've brought us to the house. And Salim said, no, I can't let you do that. And I asked Salim, why? It's okay. We can find our way. Salim said, 5 years ago, when I was young, I saw some tourists in this area and I saw a man and he got hurt. He didn't go into detail. This man got hurt and Salim was too young to help. He wasn't strong enough to help at that time. And he still carried this trauma in. And it was so wonderful that he felt able to share this story with us. And there was no way that Salim was going to let us walk to that taxi. And after he had told us that story, there was no way that I was going to tell him it was okay. That Salim and Hafida walked us to the taxi. And as we said our goodbyes, I could feel the healing. I could feel the strength. Because where he was young and he couldn't help, now he's older and he was keeping us two safe. And that was the most beautiful thing. And just before coming to this festival, every Ramadan, I send a message. And at other times during the year, and I hear from them, they're my Moroccan famalam, I call them. I've got a famalam at home and I've got my Moroccan famalam. And just before coming here, I didn't get notice until quite close that I was coming myself. So I couldn't give them enough notice for them to be able to be here. But I sent a message to Hafida and she made sure that she passed that message on to Salim, and he sent me a message back saying, I'm really sorry, I'm working. I can't come. he was really sad about it. I really want to celebrate you and what you're doing in Morocco. I want to support you. You are my family, and I really wish I could be there for you. And that is my story of how I felt joy and found pleasure.
That was really wonderful. So now we have, I think, 45 minutes. So we want everyone to tell. So if you want to tell you love story, this could be from the 76. If you could do, if you do more, it's okay. But if it's 7-6, it's you can.
Yeah. I grew up in India with three very powerful women. Three powerful women and one kitchen. Okay, so you're all laughing, so you understand the problem.
Sure.
My grandmom thought she was our executive chef. I have never seen her enter the kitchen, never.
Wow.
She would just sit on the couch watching TV and she would shout instructions. My aunt thought she was the executive chef. Every day she'd come to us and ask, so what would you like for dinner? And you, what would you like for dinner? Doesn't matter what we said, she just went and made potato curry. Every day. My mom was the youngest of the three women, but she thought she was more qualified to be executive chef. So she would buy broccoli and colorful things and make salad for us, which would, spike the kitchen budget and obviously spite the other two women. So this was the power struggle going on in my house, and it was like watching a soap opera, a TV drama throughout the day. I mean, I can laugh about it now, but at that time, I was quite anxious about the drama in my family. And I think my anxiety was not misplaced because I had seen countless conversations in my living room go from what should you have for dinner tonight to eat shit. I love my family. I loved having a big family. Festivals were amazing. Birthdays were amazing. My aunt used to make her special dal, lentils, for all of our birthdays. And I loved that. But I didn't love that the women in my family, these women that I looked up to, the women that took care of me, seemed unhappy. I remember this one time I came back home from school or maybe some extra classes, and I remember just this banging noise in the house, and our neighbors gathered around my home. And I enter and I see my grandmom shouting and saying, "You're trying to kill me," to my aunt. "You put so much salt in the food. You're just shooting my blood pressure." And my aunt is going crazy. She's like, "I'm all alone in this house. I'm the only one working." I mean, I know that everyone's chipping in, but she's frustrated. She's really frustrated. And my mom, I mean, she's not shouting, but she is angry. You can see it on her face. She's angry. And she just says, "I have no freedom." My dad comes home. My dad sees this drama and he declares there's going to be a separation. Enough is enough. A separation. He says, "We are going to have separate kitchens."
Wow.
That's a bit strange. I've seen 2 bathrooms, 2 bedrooms, but 2 kitchens in one house? How does that work? We are separating, but we're living together? We're just eating separately? That was very strange to me. I was probably around 10 or 12, I don't remember, but it just didn't make sense to me. I had so many questions. Like, what are we going, like, can I only eat the food that my mom cooks? Do we have separate snacks in our kitchen? Can I not eat the sweets that my grandparents get? I had no idea what any of this meant. But we had a small storeroom and it had a gas connection. So my parents started cleaning it up. And within 2 days, it was stocked up with groceries and we had a functioning kitchen.
my mom started spending more time in the kitchen. Every day she would experiment. She called it the balanced diet. I was not a fan. But I was not going to complain because I started to see a change. I started to see that not only was people treating each other with little more curiosity, like they would ask each other more questions. What did you make for the lunch today? They were also curious to try each other's food. So that for me was interesting. I was like, oh, my aunt continued to make her special dal makhani for our birthdays, but I discovered that my cousin liked the parathas, the rotis that my mom made, because my mom would make them with onions. And in the main kitchen, onions were not allowed. Like we couldn't eat onion and garlic. So I started to see these small changes that made me think, I don't know why, but this seems to be working. And with the passage of time, I could notice that there are other reasons for my family to fight about. I mean, when you live together, you bang your heads together. But I started to see the humor in the dynamic of my family. These three powerful women in my family would watch the same TV show at the same time. They're sitting in front of the television and they're watching it. And when the TV show ends, they all have a very different recap of what it was about. My grandmom would say, look how the daughter-in-law is treating the mother-in-law. Who does that? And then my aunt would say, did you see how the mother-in-law was trying to provoke the son against the daughter-in-law? And then my mom would say, this mother-in-law, this daughter-in-law, both are so silly. But their husbands are both cute. That's the story of my family.
That's good. Yeah. We sat here earlier, I think there are only three of us, and there are three thinking, oh, I've got to tell you lots of stories. But no, exactly. Everyone, and they're so different and so personal, and you can tell by everywhere teller, can't you? Tell by the reaction how important they are to everybody else as well. And would you like to come up and tell your story, Lorna? And is anyone out? You're right. We've got another story here, and I will badger you clearly. So I can test you. Are you right? Okay, Lorna's story next.
Hello, my name's Lorna. I also come from Wolverhampton. So, I'm allowed to. So that's fine. So this story, very in keeping with what it's the person who's looking on. I'm the person who's looking on. So I have a brother, I have a younger sister, and I had a mum and dad. This is when I would have been about, probably about 14. And there we were. Tea time after work. Dad always came in at about 6. Mum had tea on the table for 5 past. Absolutely standard. Be there, don't be elsewhere. So that happened, and I sat there and thinking, hang on a minute, where's my brother? And Mum said, it's okay, I know where he is. And I'm thinking, all right, okay then. So we're starting dinner and everything, and we have our dinner. And my brother arrives, and so my mum's sort of looking very expectant and sort of, about it. And so my brother comes in. Now, my brother, very, very calm person, could provoke the hell out of everybody else, but was completely unprovocable of himself. He came in, and there was clearly something very, very wrong. Not the usual face on my brother at all. And my mother looked at him and said, is everything okay? And he went, no. So, not good. He sits down and everything. Why? What happened? So my mother knew about this. The rest of us didn't. So what had happened was that my brother had, for probably about a year, been a Saturday boy in the local butcher's, which was opposite our house, earning money, great, you know, we had a little pocket money, but nothing to speak of and everything. So he'd been earning money, very good at saving, calm person, saving, good. Okay, he'd done all that. I had none. So he was doing all of that and everything, and he'd saved up to go and buy himself a watch, but not just an ordinary watch. So this is my 16-year-old brother hated swimming. Let me put that in there, straight away, okay? He wanted a diver's watch, which was the very big thing. We're talking about 1970 here, very big thing at the time, very big thing. So he wanted this diver's watch, and my dad sat there and said, "What happened?" So he said, "Oh, I went in and I said, and he wouldn't sell me the watch." And my dad said, "What?" My dad could do angry, very, very big angry, all the rest of it. "Tell us what happened." So brother went in, he'd gone straight from the butcher's shop, allowed to go early, to go to the jeweller's, which is in the next town to me. So that's about 1.5 miles. He'd cycled it, gone up there, got there shortly before closing time, gone in. In England, I don't know if you may have the same things, you have shutters much more. In England, jewelers' shops take trays into the back room and lock them away. Yes, similar system.
Yeah.
Yes, when you're packing up. So that was happening. Brother went in, he said, "Oh, I've seen a watch in your window." He'd been up there already. He knew exactly which one he wanted on previous weeks. "I'd like to buy the watch." Man, not interested. Not interested in the slightest. And he said, he just ignored me. And I said to him, you know, I know which one I want. And he said, "Oh, you know, I've packed them away. I've packed them away." And in the end, yes, did not sell a watch. Wouldn't even show him a watch. My father, but contained and everything. So that moment passes. Unhappy brother, unhappy family. Anyway, so my dad talks to my brother about, right, okay, where can we get this watch? What's the name of this watch? You know which watch you want. Does all of that and everything. They arrange it between them. So you'd be delighted to know my father and my brother another day go off and they go and get this, and it's an Avia Merino. I asked my brother exactly which watch it was. Okay, and back in the day that cost him a whole £30, which works out to about, I think, 440 even now. So a lot of money for a 16-year-old boy. So that all happened. Okay, so happy ending, we think here at this point, not quite the end of the story. Okay, so then we are sat there again, a whole week later, same thing again, but this time it's Dad that's late. Never happened before in my life. Where's Dad? My mother is going, "Well, where's your father? Where's your father? He didn't tell me he was going to be late. Where is he?" Anyway, my dad comes in. We all look expecting to see an angry dad because something has happened. No, he comes in looking a little bit sort of pleased with himself, but very stern. Comes in, sits down at the table, and he said, "Okay, so where have I been?" Okay, so we say, "Oh, where have you been, Dad?" He said, "I've been to a jeweller's shop." So then my dad tells the story, which is that my dad and my brother, jeans, you know, usual stuff. You've been working in a butcher's, you've had your coat on, but you know, a bit smelly and orange. That's how he'd gone to. He didn't have the butcher's coat on, but he'd had jeans and, you know, ordinary shoes on and everything gone in. My office work, he's an engineer, the office worker suit. He said, "I wore my best suit today." And he said, 'cause he obviously planned this. Anyway, he said, "I got to the window, the door of the jeweller's, and I saw that he wasn't yet packing up. So I went off to another shop, wasted a bit of time." Stop. No, sure.
So,
2 minutes for the.
yeah.
Should I stop now?
Yeah, if you could.
Yes, I can. I've been told I can continue. Okay. So he said he wasn't quite closing up. So my father wasted some time outside the shop, looking at the window, looking at the next door window, checked his watch, 2 minutes closing time, and went in and said to the man, my son has asked me about watches. He's very interested in divers' watches. So the man said, "Oh, what would you like to see?" And so my dad makes sure that he brings tray after tray after tray, and he's got a whole array in front of him. So what does this one do? So what does this one do? And how many meters can you take it to one? No, my brother would never be swimming with it at all. How many meters does this one do? Yes, and what was the difference with this one? He looked at his watch, waited until it was quarter of an hour past closing time. Okay, and then said, that's really, really interesting. Thank you so much for telling me all about your watches. He then opened his jacket, took out his wallet, and went, "As you can see, I have no money, but my son, who came here last week, had all the money to be able to buy that watch. Remember that," and walked out. It's totally true.
Wow.
And I checked all the details with my brother.
Love your.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. And can I just say that the upshot to that, in a sense, in the terms of what you said about the looking out, is what I learned about how people treat people,
Yeah.
about, not paying enough respect to the person as opposed to what they look like. So I learned that lesson, and I also learned the lesson of you can go back and you can tell somebody that they've done you wrong without hitting them,
No.
without burning down their shop. But you can still go back and get a little bit of pride back and say, actually, you've disrespected me, and you know it, and I know it, and then walk away.
Wow. Hoca story, Nasrettin Hoca, you know the first story?
Oh,
That,
right.
yeah, he goes to the banquet and nobody respects him, and then he goes and puts his fur coat, and with the fur coat everybody respects him.
Ah, there you are.
And then he puts on the lamb dish the fur, the arm sleeve of the fur. Eat fur, eat fur. You got the respect you are entitled to eat.
There you go. Yes.
Yes.
But that was all true. I can name all the places and everything.
Thank you, Lola. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Who's our next storyteller?
Rachel?
Rachel.
So this is a story I'd rather nobody recorded.
No photos?
Oh, is it being recorded?
Yeah.
Okay, in that case, I'll tell a different story. A little politically sensitive, and that's not something I really want. Okay, so there's some habits that you have, and you think bad habits, you think smoking, drinking, partying too much, all these sorts of things. But sometimes the habits that we have that are the hardest to break are the ones where it's a habit of not paying attention. Now, I come from a family of 5 children. There's my older brother, Adam, myself, my brother, Andrew, the eternal middle child, Aaron, the smallest boy, and my little sister, Roberta. Now, Roberta came along, she was the love child. She came along much later in our lives, and I was already in my 12 years old by the time my sister came along. But the child that kind of affected me, or I noticed the most when I was young, was my youngest brother, Aaron. Now, I'm an older sister, so my youngest brother, Aaron, was mostly a nuisance. We would spend most of our time trying to avoid hanging out with him because he was small and annoying. And we would play tricks on him. We would play this really horrible trick on him, where he would be annoying and he'd be like trying to play with the big kids, but he's too small really to play with us. And so we'd try and make him go away. And the way that we would do that was we would pretend that he was invisible.
Oh, no.
And he would come to us and he'd be like, Rachel, Rachel, Rachel. And I'd say, oh my God, did you hear something? Oh my God. Oh. And my older brother would say, no, I didn't hear it. And I'd say, oh, it must have just been the wind.
Oh.
And then he'd start like hitting us and saying, hey, can you see me? And we'd be like, oh, did you see something? No, I didn't see anything. Wow, that glass just moved on the table by itself. And he gets so upset that he'd go and cry to mom. And then he'd leave us alone. So, achieved. There was good times with my brother as well. When he was very small, I remember that he would cry a lot at night when he was first was sleeping by himself in the crib, and he would share a room with my brother Andrew, and I would go into the room after he was put to bed, and he'd be there crying, and my mother was trying to, get him used to being on his own, and I would kind of sneak into his room when nobody was looking, and I'd reach through the bars of his crib, and I'd just hold his hand. It was a special time for me. And he'd go to sleep and I'd be like, look at me, I'm being a really great big sister, And then he grew and we grew, and I ended up moving to England for one reason or another. And while I was living in England, my brother, who at this time was 15 years old, decided he would like to come and visit me for the summer. Now, this is great, but he's 15. And I don't really know what to do with a 15-year-old in the summer in England. And so he comes over. Actually, no, he was 16. He's a legal age. He was 16. So he comes over and stays with myself and my husband in a little apartment in Liverpool, in a really bad part of Liverpool. And I take him out shopping. Because he needs clothes, because he's got kind of slouchy Canadian clothes and he needs kind of different style clothes to fit in. So we go out shopping together, and that's a really interesting experience because he's almost a grown-up but not quite, and it's really fun. He's slouching around the house and I'm working and my husband's working, so we managed to take him down to the local employment center because he has a European passport too. We take him down to the local employment center and we get him a part-time job, working in a lunchroom at a local business, and he's with the lunch ladies and he's quite charming. So he's charming all these elderly British ladies, and he's, chatting them up, and they're all feeding. All they seem to do is feed him. He never seemed to do any work. But he's having a great time, and I'm having a great time. And then one day I come home from work, and he's there, and we end up going out to the local pub. And while I'm in the local pub, the publican comes kind of pulls me. I know this guy who's the local pub, so we go there quite a bit. And he kind of pulls me to one side and he says, no, your brother's been in here every night this week, and he's trying to find out who to buy pot from. Buy marijuana from.
Like, and he's like, and he's not subtle about it. He just goes from person to person. So, okay, now I've got to do something about this problem, and I'm feeling pretty bad about this. So I take him to one side and we have a conversation about how, buying drugs in a country that you don't belong in is probably a bad idea. And, some subtlety would be helpful and this sort of thing. And he cries and I cry and everything's okay. And then he goes home and we've had a really good time reconnecting with him as an almost adult, and me as an almost adult. I'm still working on that part. And 2 years later, my husband and I decide that we're going to have a wedding in Canada. We're going to get officially married. And I go home with my husband. And we're preparing this wedding. And I give my younger brother Aaron a passage from Tom Robbins' Still Life with Woodpecker to read about love being the ultimate outlaw. And I tell him, now you have to practice this. And he tells me, yes, I will. But he didn't, because the next day there was a tragedy, like many tragedies. There was a motorcycle and a car. And then I didn't have a younger brother, at least a youngest brother. And there's times when, sorry, this is do this. There's times when I'm sitting and I think about those habits, about not appreciating what I had, about not spending more time with him. And I think, and I think sometimes I can hear his voice. It's only the wind. Oh.
Thank you. Very brave you just said that. So.
What's really wonderful is
Can I?
you tell a story like that, he's there with me, and it's really exciting. So I think I can get through it, and I cry every time.
Yeah. Are you going to maybe? She's avoiding.
She's deluded.
I
Processing.
mean, I think it deserves a moment. No?
I have other brothers that are really annoying. We fight all the time still. It was many years ago.
Well, we have 9 minutes, but we don't have to use it. Wind up though, there's some brilliant stories. 2 hours has gone in the blink of an eye.
Well, we can have a moment.
Yes, thank you so much for hosting personal storytelling sessions.
Thank you. Thank you for filling the room. Thank you for filling the room with stories that have been so enjoyable and even more nice stories. And if you would like to round our session off, we do have a. Yeah, maybe you're welcome. I don't like to force people, but sometimes it's fun. Make sure you get a picture.
Yeah, I feel pretty serious. So.
Excellent, well done. I'm glad. Well done, everyone. Come and finish our session off for us.
Well, I can only share. I mean, let's see what I'm going to share. I'm not even. Let's see, but I can only share if you're okay with tears.
Yes, clearly.
I mean, I cry minimum once a day. I cry a lot. I love to cry, and I have a very close relationship with my tears with this practice. I also just got my period, so it's very. But yeah, I'm always surprised when I find most people don't seem very comfortable. So the minute I cry, no, how come no?
Yeah.
So you should be saying you're welcome. You know, like, I almost want to say thank you, for giving that chance. Whew. Wow. Actually, this session was my favorite by far, from the whole festival so far. So really, thank you for sharing your stories. Each one really is a gift. Let's see if I hope I can contribute to this. So, I guess the story that's the only one that feels like makes sense to share is something I was sharing the other day. So it's, hmm. It's kind of the story around what I'm doing here. So let's see if you will help me find the next chapter of the story. I can only tell you what's happened until now. So my first trip to Morocco was about 12 years ago. It was a very special trip together with my dad. My dad's from Iraq, and I've never been able to travel to Iraq, fortunately. So somehow unexpectedly, this trip to Morocco felt like a kind of step towards coming home somehow. I grew up in Canada, so quite different than. And since that very first trip, and in particular, my very first trip to Essaouira, which some of you might know is a beautiful, very peaceful, very magical town on the coast, not too far from here. I felt like, wow, there's no way I can continue living my life knowing that this place exists, magical place exists, where at least I feel so well, and I'm not there. How come it took me this long anyway in my life? And yet, despite that feeling, and despite coming back every 6 months for the next couple of years, I always held on to what felt like the more rational reason to stay elsewhere. I just started a master's in Germany at the time. I went home to start a nonprofit in Berlin. So I always felt like I have a reason why, like, yeah, Morocco will travel one day soon, maybe next year, maybe in 6 months, maybe no. And whenever I would come, sometimes I would even come on a one-way ticket, but then something would happen. Someone got married, someone had a child, someone passed, there was something always I had to leave, and I was like, I'm coming back soon. 3 years ago, I even left a big bag of stuff in Essaouira with my friends there. I told them, guys, I'm coming back in a couple months. I don't want to bring this stuff back and forth 10 times, but let's keep it until today. It's there. So, about a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, I left my organization, the nonprofit I started. It was also quite a process to do so. And one of my intentions in leaving was to be able to kind of create some space for me to finally maybe make this move. Left it, now I have the time and the space, but what if it doesn't work out? Okay, maybe I still have to do a few more trainings and learn things and really be ready. And, because I don't want it to fail. I want to be so ready that it just goes perfectly. So I traveled to other places and I did courses here and there, this and that. And I found myself back in Berlin. I don't know if I mentioned I had been living in Berlin the last 10 years. Yeah, that's where I started the organization. And I have not been very happy there for the last years. And I asked myself, what am I still doing here? Why am I still here? And I said, okay, if only I didn't have this great, very cheap old rent contract with the nicest flat in the best area of the city that I could never afford if it wasn't for this very old contract. And I know if I say no, if I cancel this, khalas, never again. That's like so sure, right? Night after night, I would have a conversation with the universe, and sometimes I would secretly wish for this to just be taken away from me, so that I would finally have the excuse, or I could find the courage maybe to come and make this move. A few weeks passed, and one day, casually opened the mailbox and opened the letter, and I saw I'm being evicted. After 6 years in that flat, I have to be out in 2 weeks. What? Oh my God, how? No way. Oh. Seriously, shit. And guess what? What is the message? The day I had to be out was a Sunday, and believe it or not, a few weeks prior to that, I had already booked a trip to Morocco for the Monday. The Gnawa festival at Essaouira. So I was like, so Sunday night, I had packed my thing. It was a drama. I took my things and I didn't have that much anyway, but anyway, whatever I had, I either packed away or sold or gave it, blah, blah, blah. So Sunday night, I went with my last backpack and my suitcase to my friend's place, slept on her couch. Next day, I flew to come here. Right? You would think, well, خلاص, that's the end of the story. يعني, no job, no apartment, no partner. I have my friends, I have my networks, but yeah, you can somehow, I mean, anyway, the dream was to come here. I'm here now, so what's خلاص, why, right? But a friend of mine from Canada had already planned to stay with me in the summertime in Berlin. So a few weeks later, I felt I can't, and now not only can't host her, but I'm not even going to be there to welcome her to the city. Haram. So I had to go back to Berlin, stay again on this friend's sofa, and at least spend time with this friend who was coming all the way from Canada, right? Fine. I told you there's always a reason. Then someone was getting married. I went to Portugal. Then I had a conference in the US. Then I visited my family in the US. You should go to Canada. So I always found many reasons not to go back, right? End of the summer came. I had my trip to go back to Berlin because where else to go? I had found a room to rent for 1 month. And I said, all right, look, universe, God, or I don't know, said, I know maybe you already gave me the answer to my question, but somehow I just needed to one more time. One more, just being so clear with me. If I'm meant to go, don't change anything in my life. Let me spend this last month in Berlin. I say my goodbyes and that's it. Anyway, my stuff is packed in a bunch of keller, how do you say, basements of flats across the city. It's fine. I'll go in peace. But if you want to stay, I want 2 things. That's it. Don't job, I'll figure it out. Just I want 2 things. Very good flat in my neighborhood. I'm not gonna go just anywhere in Berlin. I want to stay in my neighborhood. The only place in the city where I feel kind of a home, sense of home. Balcony, living room, portable. Give me a nice place. Otherwise, masara. And I want a partner. Give me a good partner. That's it. Those 2 things. You guys, in 2 weeks, I have both.
Oh,
Or so I thought. So I met this guy and started to meet and date and this and that. And I'm like, yes and no, yes and no. And one day, on the 3rd date, he invited me to his place. He was going to cook lunch. I said, okay. It's taking a long bus ride across the city. He lived in one of those random places in the city where I normally didn't spend time. So I'm taking a long bus ride. And on this bus ride, my heart is pounding. I was feeling super, super anxious. And I had this voice inside of me telling me, don't go. What are you doing? See, you're like, what do you want? Just leave. Just go already. What are you doing? I mean, he's nice, but it's not, it doesn't make sense. Please don't do it. Don't do it. Don't track her. Don't get into this whole drama. Haram, it's the time of lunch, or I'm already late. Guy already cooked. Tell him, like, never mind. So let me just go, be polite, eat. Thank you very much. And leave, and that's it. And so on my way there, I take out my phone. You know, the friends where I left the bag of stuff in Essaouira, I send them a message. I said, guys, get ready, I'm coming.
Wow.
Max 2 weeks, I'm on my way. They said, yeah, finally, you say that every year, but this time, guys, I have nothing here, really. The universe took everything from me here. I'm coming. So I'm feeling super anxious now. Get off the bus. I'm like, what am I still? I'm here. I am planning to leave, and I'm gonna meet this. What am I gonna say? So as I'm walking down the street towards his place,